Okay, how are you going, everybody? The project for today is going to be something along the lines of sort of my little home garage business that I call vintage debris. Most of what I like to make, I try to use out of recycled materials. Today we're going to make essentially sort of a hobo stove version, at least my version. This piece of pipe or tubing here is actually a 5-inch diameter piece of exhaust pipe off the stack of a Kenworth truck, and it came off my friend's truck. As you can see, it's pretty raunchy looking, all rusty. At one point in time it was chrome. Somewhere underneath, well, you can still see, if I get around, maybe little shiny spots right there where it's still chrome. But these things are about 9 feet long when when they come down the stack of the stack comes down the side of the truck and underneath, and it was starting to rust out in spots, so he replaced it. So I salvaged this small piece. It's I think about 10 or 11 inches long. What I've done is I've marked, you can see them, lines here. I'm going to use this portion of it right here, from here to here, will be the base, and then I'm going to cut it here. Then I'm going to take this portion in the middle and I'm going to split it and pinch it in a little bit and re-weld it so that it's a slightly smaller diameter, so that it will fit inside this larger piece. And then this piece that's cut off here probably won't be used. Then what we're going to do on the base of it here, I have a piece of, was actually a 200-gallon oil tank, and I've salvaged that, so I've got some large pieces of fairly flat material off of the sides of that. So I'm going to cut a round piece to fit the bottom here, and I'm going to weld that on. And so what we'll have is a piece this big to this line here, which will be basically like a cup. It'll be a little pot with the bottom welded on. We'll drill holes all the way around, and I'm going to take a piece of expanded metal, which I don't happen to have a piece right handy to show you, but it's that kind of it's metal that's kind of diamond holes in it, but quite heavy duty. I'll show you that as the project goes along. So what we're going to do, I thought it would be easier to drill it now before I cut it into small pieces, just because now I got something to hold on to instead of slipping and drilling my fingers. So I'm going to take a magic marker and I'm just going to mark some holes around here. I'm going to mark the opposite sides and then the same thing. I'm not going to measure the exact dimensions around there because, it'll be very, very eyeball close, and it's going to be close. So I'm going to drill some holes around the base. I'm debating on whether to recess the plate for the bottom slightly. I think maybe I might do that when I weld it on. Recess it in slightly, maybe 1/4 of an inch, so that I can weld in 3/8 inch nuts. And then what I can do is take some 3/8 inch bolts, maybe 4-inch bolts, and then I could actually sit it up on the stand of the bolts above the ground, so that if I'm in an area where there's grass or something like that, the reason the plate's on the bottom is exactly for the same reason. I don't want the coals to burn and then drop out and cause me a problem if I'm in an area where there's maybe some dry grass. So doing that would allow me to lift it up a little bit and get the heat away from the grass, and also keep anything from coming out. The suspended piece of expanded metal will be about an inch, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/8, about 1/2 inch maybe above the floor inside, and so the holes will be roughly parallel with that to let the air in, and that's expanded metal is where the fire is actually going to sit. And that means that as the ashes burn, they'll drop that 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever it is onto the plate without being able to get out, but still being able to drop through and let the air circulate better. So I think what we're going to do first is start drilling these holes. Well, first I'll mark them, of course, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just going to step across in front of the... I think I'm going to reposition the camera here a little bit. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my big fat permanent marker here. So my intention here is to make a mark and then just eyeball across, trying to go exactly opposite that mark. So that's going to be right there. And we'll make another mark there. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll try and go exactly quarters. There we are. Exactly quarters. We'll make a mark there. And then the same on the other side. We'll make a mark there. That's pretty close. Now this gets easier now. So when you look at it this way, you can see these two marks that are quarters. If you eyeball it, you can come very close to finding the center line. So we're going to do that. Mark it on each one. I'm going to go here. We're going to find the center line. We're going to mark it there. We're going to do that with all the 4 quarters. And now we have 8s. And I think for the purpose of what I'm doing here, 8 holes will probably be sufficient. So all we've done is mark, you probably can't see that, let me get it under, maybe under the light. Well anyways, I put little marks on there. So what we're going to do is adjust. Now this can be done with I mean this is a small drill press obviously, but this can just as easily be done with a hand drill. You just want to be awfully careful because as you're drilling on a curved surface like this, the tendency on a hand drill is for it to skip out, and that's a good way to get a drill in your finger. Actually, I'm going to get a small power punch here, so I'll be right back. Okay, so what I want to do, I think, is center these holes 1 inch above the base. And if I drill a 1/2 inch hole eventually, then I will end up with about a 3/4 of an inch clearance between my bottom plate there, 1 inch up. I'll have about 3/4 of an inch. That's probably enough. So 1 inch. We'll go around. Might as well mark all 8 of them right now. And that will be my spots to drill. Make sure I'm at the right end here before I get carried away. I don't know that, I mean I suppose if I got really precise with this, I don't think that, as long as you're very, very close, I don't think it's going to take too much out of the efficiency of burning it if it's, you know, 1/4 of a centimeter apart or something, or 1/8 of an inch, whatever. Okay, so there's our 8 holes. Let's put this thing away before I make a total mess of myself. There we go. Okay, we don't need that. So now's our punch. So we're going to lay this down, and we're going to take our mark, and we're going to, it's just a little tool. It's got a spring-loaded section in here and a point, and when you press on it, it comes in and it snaps on that spring, and it leaves a nice little shallow spot. So we're going to go right there. Let's go fairly straight down here. There's 1. 2. 3. Quite sure the camera won't focus anywhere near close enough to see these because they are just as if you tapped it with a nail or something. So there's just a little indentation there. All that has to do is keep the drill from skipping, or help keep it from skipping around. I'm hoping, and it's so cold in here today that this chuck is practically frozen. I can barely turn it. Okay, I need a little bit more height. Take that out. I'll set him to the side here. Okay, let's see what we can do. I'm starting with a 1/4 inch drill just to set the holes. These are safety glasses, by the way, that I'm wearing. They're also prescription glasses, but they are safety glass. Hot little spark. Okay, so I've got my 8¼ inch holes, so I'm just going to go back with a 1/2 inch drill. I'm going to go back around it and do it again, and so I'm going to just make them 8½ inch holes. Okay, we're back. As you can see, I've got my 1/2 inch holes, 8 of them around the base. My original thought was to do the same thing at the top, but it seems to me I might as well work on, I'm going to have to deburr that inside, work on something of a gasifier effect. So I drilled these along the top line, actually where I was planning originally to cut it. So my cut's going to probably be perhaps 1 inch higher than that now. So this will be a little bit bigger than I thought. Really what I want it to do is have this portion sit down further into the heat of the fire pit, which is down in here, so that it draws the heat up the side, and then it'll go through here and you get that gasifier effect, which means I'm going to have a little bit up the top, and I'm probably going to have to cut little loops in it for the air and the flames to be able to circulate. But so this is going to be about 1 inch taller than I thought. Well, actually the overall height won't be much different. So for that reason I've drilled 8 5/16 holes rather than the larger holes here. The next thing is part of a wolf's coyote skull here we don't need. I don't think he'll mind if we move him over there. The other thing was, my original thought was to bring my plasma cutter out here and cut this with the plasma cutter. But it actually does a good cut, but it leaves a bit of a burr here. Let's just brace this so it doesn't roll on me. So I think what I'm going to do is cut it with my angle cutter. Oh, and here's a piece of that flat metal that I was talking about that came out of that oil tank. And I was looking around for a large flat piece that I could cut a circle out of, and I found this piece that was already cut. Obviously I was cutting a hole out of something, and this is just the scrap piece that was left. But as I put a little bit of a line around here with a soapstone, and as you can see, it's nearly perfect. There's about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch all the way around. So there's lots of room for me to take this down to size. So we'll just save that for a couple of minutes. So anyways, as I was saying, I think what I'm going to do is cut this with my angle grinder. And the reason being, I've got to, that's good, I've got to grind it smooth anyways, so I might as well just do it once. This makes a clean, neat cut. Let's move this out of the way here so that the sparks don't burn it up. So this makes a clean, neat cut, and you just take your time. You can get, oh, my gloves are soaked. We got a bit of a rain last night, and I had left them out. So anyways, we'll adjust the guard here so that it's going to help protect our face. There we go. And so I guess what we'll do, okay, maybe what we'll do is cut the small piece off first. Here we go. Sparks will fly. Just keep that so it won't roll. Maybe do the same thing on this side just to give it a slight brace. Okay, so I've cut what's going to be the waste piece off. I was too lazy to put a thinner bit, so I actually cut it off with a grinding wheel, which is just pretty dumb really. Made a mess and made it tougher to do in the long run. So what I've done is gone and got some actual thinner metal cut. That's a metal wheel, but it was a grinding wheel more than a cutting wheel. So let's do it properly. We threw a heck of a lot of sparks around for nothing. We've unplugged this, by the way, just for safety. There we go. Put you over there. Put you in there. I'll show you the difference in these wheels. They're almost identical in terms of what they are. Just it's the thickness. This is quite a thick wheel, and it's made for grinding on the flatter surface. And this wheel is quite thin comparatively. I think you can see that maybe now how much thinner this wheel is, and it's made to cut on the edge as a cutter. There is no grinding surface here as there is on this one. So, you know, this did the job, but it was just a lazy thing to do, and it did a messy job. So that's our first piece. So now we've got, and as I was saying, I've cut it about 3/4 of an inch to an inch higher here. And what I'm going to have to do is cut little steps or something in there to open it up so that I can get so the flames have a chance to come out underneath. And perhaps make a couple of little holes here and here and then here so that I can put a couple of little rods across, sort of, or even just get a grill to sit on the top, so that if I've got a pot it won't matter, but if I've got something smaller like a cup that I'm just warming up with some soup in it or something, of course it'll fall through. So I won't consider that too much yet, because I still have to cut this piece off here to make this a separate piece, and then I'm going to split this piece when it's separate down, and I'm going to knock out probably, I'll have to measure it up and calculate out how much I want, but I imagine it's going to be about 3/4 of an inch, and I'll cut that out so that I can sort of press it together, and then I'll re-weld it so that I have a smaller diameter. What I want it to do is sit inside this bottom piece with about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, so it'll be about 1/2 an inch smaller in diameter. So I take the diameter of this one, and then I'll determine what I want this to be to get about 1/4 of an inch clearance all the way around. It's a little bit of math, nothing to it. So I guess at this point I'll go ahead and start cutting that off, and you'll see here with this machine, I've got it plugged back in, yep, that it's going to cut a lot easier with the proper disc on it. I'm just going to start it so you can see the difference, but I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'll wait until I get it done. But this is what it's going to be like. Okay, so I've taken the grinder, and I've just cleaned around the edges here so that I can trace it around, cut it, and then weld it. Now these drilled holes, some of them have a little burr. Just take a rat-tailed file. You just don't want to catch your fingers when you're handling this. The little fine pieces would probably burn off, but in the meantime I don't really want to get a little cut from them. They are darn sharp. Bad. Okay, so I think I'm going to save the welding till tomorrow. By the time I get my welder out here and get set up, and the sun is getting close to going down, it's probably 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't get actually dark until 9 o'clock, but it gets dull and dusk. And the main reason is it's just been a long day already. Okay, so this is where we're going to line this up nice. I think it's still sprung out of shape. I have to round it off a bit. So I think I'm going to try and get a tack on the inside here, just to tack it in place. And then I can remove these and run a bead. I'm going to try and run the bead inside just because it looks better, but at this point I don't think that's really very noticeable. However, we'll give it a go. Alright, get a ground on here, get it maybe over there, make sure it's good and secure. I'll have to hold that just about like that, so that's perfect. So the sunlight's in it, and I should be using my MIG welder. This is a little heavy duty for this particular job, but the MIG welder is inside and it's off of its portable cart, set up for another project I was working on, and I could move it, but it would probably take more work to do that than it's worth for the minute or two of welding that I might do. So we're going to take this, give it a try. Hopefully we won't burn any holes through it. We'll see. We'll just let that sit for a minute. If we're careful, well, it's not bad. If we're careful, we can weld even this thin stuff without causing too much harm. Okay, I finished welding the bottom on, cleaned it up just a bit so there's no sharp edges in my hands. The welds are actually on the inside, and instead of worrying about rusty metal and so on, I've tacked it all the way around about 4 places. Then I split the difference and did it in 4 more, so I've now got, and then I went half again, so I've probably got a dozen tacks in there. So that's well, we'll find out. That's a lot of weld. I mean, the tacks are probably a ½ inch long, so they're pretty good. Okay, so I've got this part welded up. I've made my stand for the bottom, and the stand on the bottom, I just cut it a bit smaller. I cut a piece out of the middle, I split it down the middle, took a piece out of the middle, pulled it back together, and welded it right here. And then I put a plate on it to double the thickness of the bottom. Probably didn't need it, but what the heck. And now I've put a little weld here, about, I don't know if you can see that, just a weld here, I don't know, maybe 1.25 inches or so. And then the same on this side, just welded the plate to this side. You know, you could weld all the way around, but I mean, it's a cook stove. I'm not going to use it for a car jack, so that's really strong. So that's actually upside down, so I've just been cleaning this up a little bit. I don't know if I like the height here. I've got the holes in the bottom. The whole point of this stand is just to keep it off, so if there's any dry grass or whatever, I don't want it to set the grass on fire. So I left these holes through here. They don't go through from the inside. It's a solid plate on the bottom, if you can see that. But it does let some air, some breeze blow through, so that it will help keep this section cooler. It's a little warm from welding it. So actually, it's going to sit like that. And I thought seriously about putting the basket type thing inside to make the heatilator, the gasifier. But honestly, I think, you know, this isn't a stove I'm going to heat a tent with, and I'm not probably going to cook a huge meal on it. You might cook a steak on it, or pork chop, or heat up some soup, or boil water to cleanse it, or purify it, or whatever. But this stove isn't really designed to burn for hours, obviously. You're just going to want to have something that's going to burn for what, half an hour, 45 minutes. And I'm going to have to cut little notches here to let, or else put a cross piece in to let the flames come through better. But at the same time, you know, half an hour, and if you have to, lift your pot off and throw a couple more sticks in. I mean, it's not rocket science here. And it's light, you know, the more superstructure I keep adding into it, the more poundage it's going to be. In fact, heat-wise, being that the heat comes up, I don't even know if I need this base to be even more than that high. Still, I think I'm going to do a test fire in it, and I have a heat gun, so once I've got a pretty good fire burning in here, I'll measure the heat here, just for interest's sake, and I'll measure the heat here, just above ground level sort of thing, just to see how much heat transfer there is. Now maybe I'll try up here and try down here once I've got a good coals going, just to get an idea. So I'll bring you back so we can see that with the first test fire.